I'm going to start with a question to David. So a bit of the intro. I've known David for a couple of years now. He's been a friend to Treble and somebody who I could always come to help. And it's always great to kind of meet investors who are actively looking into the region. Now, I know you're at Shift and I know you had some sessions there. So before we start, was it good? A lot of folks say that they come to Shift for the after parties. How were they? I wasn't on any of the after parties.
So first of all, Vedran, thank you very much for the invitation. I happened to be on the second meetup. Unfortunately, the first one was taken by Tunia from 500. Yeah. She's sending also the regards. Also, it's great to see all of you guys here as I guess you're all aspiring founders or active founders or hopefully soon to be exited founders or potentially even VCs. So it's glad that we can spend some time together. Of course, I mean, I'll be around later on as well. So for all the questions, we can catch up, get to know each other. Potentially, we could invest into your amazing startup, which I hope I will see today a lot of them.
How was it at Shift?
Shift, yeah. To be fair, I think it was actually a great conference. What I like about the Infobip Shift is actually that's the whole initiative of Infobip, which is one of the two unicorns right now from Croatia, almost bootstrapped. And what I liked about it is that actually they're trying to give back to the whole community. So they kind of achieved certain level of success, and now they're actually trying to build a community backwards. And trying to give back, trying to organize, trying to pull all the startup together, being in the initiative of the Startup Tribe, which is run by Nicola. So to be fair, I think it was a really good conference, and as it was only third year third year where actually the startup stage happened to be there. I think that I was there already in the first year. It was very a startup way where Nicola was actually pulling the chairs on till 3 a.m. But today it was already much more professionalized, and we could see plenty of good content and actually the whole Croatian ecosystem. I mean, to be fair, I believe that Vedran will also start giving back to the community, which he already started with these meetups, but I hope that we'll see each other much more often.
We will. Thank you for the shout out.
And actually, just one more thing to clarify, Treble is not only my good friend, we also wanted to invest. Unfortunately, we came just after the first round, once he closed it, so we didn't manage that. I always was saying I would love to invest in Treble, but then he closed a rather bigger round, which was already outside of our league. So anyway, congratulations.
We'll do it next time on the next company. But thank you for the word of confidence. Really appreciate it. On a more serious note, tell us a bit about your background, like how you got started in VC. What does your fund do, JNT Ventures? What kind of ticket sizes do you do, and the whole VC spiel?
So basically, just briefly about myself, I'm the principal of JNT Ventures. I'm right now with JNT Ventures the third year. Before that, I actually worked in tech and financial consulting in Switzerland. And then during the COVID times, I decided it's time to come back. And also the corporate world was a bit boring. So I started at JNT Ventures. It was a great opportunity. Now I'm there for 3 years. We are a fund. It's a second fund. So the first fund was around 7 to 8 million euros. In there, we have right now 4 or 5 successful exits. Still 3 companies actually which can do the proper upsides. Also, we have 2 write-offs. That's absolutely normal that some companies actually die. So we have our rest in peace section on our website. Nice. Right now we are investing from the second fund. The second fund has 45 million euros. Right now we have 17 investments, and we invest tickets from 500,000 to 2.5 million. I mean, at this stage, it's kind of like according to the tickets. So it could be the pre-seed, seed. It's not super early stage where usually we would like to see already some revenues and also the great product and great potential.
Nice. I know you invested in some Croatian companies as well.
Exactly. We have right now 2 investments in Croatia. We invested in robotic AI and into AdScanner. Okay. Which is now called All Eyes on Screens.
Oh, really?
They rebranded it.
When did that happen?
Like 2 days ago.
Okay, congrats.
So with both of those investments, we are actually quite happy. They are doing quite well. AdScanner luckily already closed another round after us. I think end of last year, and let's see, maybe they will go for another fundraise. with robotic, they are happy, they are growing quite steadily, quite nicely. So with them, it's not necessary to go for fundraising. So let's see how it moves forward. Anyway, to be absolutely fair, Croatia is one of our markets we would like to focus on. So that's why I'm traveling around like every couple of months to drop around and to actually speak and to network. So I remember the first time I came to Treble, Vedran really appreciated it, and he gave me a shot of rakia straight when I entered the door, being very appreciative that I actually came.
Yeah, that is true. We love drinking rakia. We also had one, or at least two, right? Was it just two? So yeah, we ran out of rakia. So if there was more, I'm sure we would have had more. But like you mentioned at the beginning, you usually invest in like pre-seed to Series A companies, and more popularly known early stages, which is, I would assume most people here are early stage, or if they're planning something will become early stage. But at those stages, like traditionally, you don't have a lot of data to kind of analyze and understand and be like, hey, we're going to invest in these guys because they have so much revenue or so much potential. What do you usually, how do you start kind of shaping your decision about why do you want to invest in that company?
I mean, at the very early stages, it's actually all about the founders and all about the people who are standing behind the company. So when there is almost no product, no revenue, the only thing you can invest in is the team which is there. So the team needs to have the competencies in the area in which they are actually being active. If they don't, it's usually a bit difficult that they will not know the competition or they are not able to pull it through. And I would always advise since the beginning for the founders team to be a bit like they should have all the skills necessary. I mean, ideally, there should be one guy or girl who understands the tech in a very, very much detail, so he knows the tech and that's the tech magic. Then there should be somebody who is really good at sales. So the salesperson who is able to go to the clients, who is able to sell it, and who actually is responsible for the go-to-market, being it only being enterprise sales or being an inbound or outbound, simply somebody who understands how to get the product to the monetization, even though there is nothing to monetize. I mean, since the beginning, you should think about how to monetize that. So if you have a product, there should always be somebody who thinks about the go-to-market strategy. And lastly, last but not least, there should be a person who is good at running the company. It can be the CEO who actually can manage more people, who has the people skills and is well organized and can actually run the business as a manager. So this would be I would say, ideal. I mean, there's nothing ideal. But in portfolio, we have companies where we have 5 co-founders. We have companies where we have only one founder, the main one. And I mean, none of it is super idealistic. There's 5 of them. The issue might be actually that the equity needs to be split among 5 of them. So it can be a bit demotivating once they start diluting themselves. And if there's only one co-founder, then it's a single founder, then he might feel under too much pressure. So I strongly advise to start composing the team with all abilities and to decide, it doesn't need to be equally split the equity, but everybody in the team should be somehow motivated. And then, of course, the second part is the product and the vision and the ambition. I mean, if somebody is building a scalable company since day one, then it's good to set up the processes since day one. So start monitoring your finances, start setting up KPIs. Once you have anything what you can track, being it free downloads, being it the volume on your website, being it anything, start measuring it, because those are all the metrics which are actually good for the fundraising later on. The sooner you start doing that, the sooner you can start building the good charts to actually convince anybody to invest into you and to have a good story for that. And then last but not least is the market. I mean, the market which needs to be in the billions of dollars, which is absolutely important because we as a venture capitalist, if the market is too small, the company cannot grow to the magnitude. We need to actually return the whole fund. Which actually, this should be the mentality of every single venture capitalist. Then if the venture capitalist actually invests, he expects that he is able to return the whole fund just from this one company. So it might not happen. In majority cases, actually it doesn't happen, but the potential needs to be seen since the beginning. On the size of the market, I would always advise to actually count your proper market. So you actually did your homework. So if you do something in a cloud, just one portion, any kind of section of that, your whole market is not the whole cloud industry in $1 trillion, but you have only this small part which you can touch upon, right? And that kind of goes hand in hand. So that would be the very early stage to actually assess.
Nice. Anything else?
One more thing is the ambition and the vision. I mean, it might sound stupid and it might sound like a business cliche from a business lecture, but actually, I mean, since the beginning, it's about the people. So if I go sit down with you on a coffee or lunch, or you stop by in our offices, and I speak with you, I need to feel the energy from you. That you have the energy and the willingness to actually put it through, that you strongly believe in your vision, and you will not stop with the first problem. Because the problems and the issues alongside the way, there will be more than one, there will be probably more than 100, more than 1,000. But if you have the vision and the ambition to actually succeed, then you can all kind of go through and you will kind of find a way. I mean, and if I'm talking about ambition, it's not that you will sell the company for 2 million euros or 10 million euros. You have to go to the moon. Then at one point you will actually stop at half of the journey, and that actually is enough. But you have to have the ambition.
And on top of that, the problems do get exponentially bigger as time goes by. So be prepared to handle that. But a couple of words, a couple of times you said the word story. So I hate quoting Steve Jobs because he's probably the most quoted person in the planet, especially in business. But he did say like a really good sentence that always struck me, like the most powerful kind of person in the world is the storyteller, because he sets the vision, like you said, the values and the agenda. So do you think, especially in early stages, that essentially having a really strong founding team that can actually tell a good story to not just investors, but everybody from employees to analysts to anybody who's he talking to?
To have a good story, it kind of goes hand in hand with the ambition and the vision. And why I'm all talking about this and trying to all push it through is that because I think in general, our region, we are a bit lacking in this. I mean, in Silicon Valley, if you speak with a founder, he sets up any kind of app or any kind of topic. It can be like absolute bollocks app. He will tell you on a first meeting that with this app, he will change the world. And we are laughing at this, but this is their attitude. This is their way how they think about it. This is how they jump into it. In our region, we have other strengths. We have really good technical talent, and we are quite good in running the business. I know plenty of founders, they are really good entrepreneurs. They know how to run the business in a capital efficient way, which is very sexy currently. On the other hand, and that might be even not for the very early stage founders, but even in later stage, once you go to the Series A, then you already have something. You are building the company, you have your revenues, you have your clients. But at that point, the Series A is just the beginning. So you need to actually sit down and you need to convince the later stage investors that you have the vision, and then you will actually they will be able to make a fund out of your company. And I mean, for them, it's a starting point. I mean, for you to get to the Series A point, it's a great success. If you do that, that's amazing. If you fundraise a 5 million on 10 million round, that's an amazing success, right? I mean, there is no doubt about it. You already built something that has some more value and somebody believed in you. But then when you actually go to the next level, you need to understand that, I mean, it's just the beginning for any kind of investor. And if you don't convince him that that your company can go from 20 million valuation to 200 million valuations to $1 billion company, then he will not invest in you, even though you have all the other metrics. Some founders might be a bit confused. They grow 2 times year on year, they grow recurring revenues, they have scalable business, they do everything what is possible. They have clients from abroad, not only from a region, but simply they are not good at storytelling. They don't get the investors excited. So if you don't get your investors excited and you don't get your team excited and you will not get them all on board with your vision, they will never help you to get there and they will not believe it. So you need to make others believe in your vision And first of all, the founders need to believe it themselves, right? So, and for that to build up a proper story, that's quite important. And on top of that, of course, you need to have all the other metrics, which needs to be successful for the round. You need to have the KPI, some growth, some level of revenues, some traction. But that's something what usually we are able to achieve in our region. That is the last tipping point, because sometimes I feel like the founders, they see the vision just in front of them, like 10 meters, 50 meters in front of them. So if they don't have a company, so for them it's going to be achievement if somebody going to have 10,000 recurring revenues. Once they're going to have 10,000 recurring revenues, then they will get, okay, so maybe I can get to 100. Once they're going to get to 100, it's like, oh, cool, I never thought I will make it. So now I can get to 500K. And this is how they are moving step by step. But I mean, there is always a different way how to build a business since the beginning to achieve $1 billion, or then to adjusting it, like, step by step. It's go hand in hand with the setting up the legal entity. I mean, the startups which already have the experience, they go straight away to the US, set up a Delaware entity, and they are kind of like taking the investments directly there because it's all managed since the beginning. Simply, our legal system in Czech Republic is not stuff for that, and I believe, and I saw that the Croatian system is not as well.
Yeah, I mean, our Croatian system isn't ideal. It might be getting better, but yeah, either UK is a popular first destination, then US, but yeah, you're absolutely right. So what actually makes a good startup story or a founder story? Is it basically, the market, the size of the market, the experience of the founders, the insights that founders have, the way that they pitch it, or basically a mix, a perfect storm, as they say?
I would say it's in ideal stage everything. But you will never get like all 100 tick boxes which the investors want. Investor wants something what the valuation is not super high, the ticket is still reasonable, which grows like 5 times year on year, has unlimited market, everybody wants it, no churn. Like you can go like step by step, like, it's impossible. It doesn't exist, right? So it's always about some kind of balance. And the balance just needs to like kind of go more in yes to invest, then actually on the other side, no to invest. So it's step by step. I mean, apparently you can be strong in 4 areas, which are very important. Then you can you can be good in sales, you can be good in running a company, you can be good in that. But then you might lack the uniqueness of your solution. You might have issues of, company culture. That's something what we underestimate very much as well. I mean, if you run the company and you don't get your employees on board, so it doesn't consist of a good team, and not everybody knows what is happening in the other team and what's happening with the revenues, that's an issue. So, I mean, those all little things might actually be the difference between getting an investment and not getting investment. And I mean, with the investors, I mean, apparently there are always in decision-making process very obvious, yes, we want to invest, and very obvious, no, we don't want to invest. But I mean, majority of the cases, always a balance. And in a cases where we actually invest or don't, it's a tipping point. Because I mean, at the same company, with the same information, 7 funds can say, yes, we would like to invest, and 7 will say, no, we won't. But I mean, they did most probably the same analysis. They came up with the same outcomes. They even discussed it among themselves. But some of them just believed and took the risk on some of the areas, and some don't. So, there has to be, no matter what, the chemistry between the founder and the investor. Because, I mean, after all, it's almost like a marriage. I mean, in a marriage, you can always apply for a divorce. Whereas when you let somebody on a cap table, it's much more difficult to get rid of him, right? So,
especially if the legal system is not really good. But to add on top of this, I don't know where Petra from our HR is, wherever she is. She'll take me later, but on the culture thing, I definitely agree. Like I openly admit I never believed anything that the culture thing was real. Like how much it impacts thinking, how much it impacts execution. And it impacts your hiring, right? Because if you hire somebody that doesn't fit into the culture, then everybody else is going to be building walls around that person, and it's just going to push them out. So it's actually really, really important. Americans did figure something out at the end. So I think we've laughed a bit about. We always talk about U.S. and how we like to compare Europe and U.S. And I feel like there's a lot of, like you said at the beginning, like if you talk to an American founder, them raising like 10 million is nothing, right? When you first meet them, they want like 50 million. But essentially, it is still a story, but I know you guys actually do something to validate that story, right? So if I'm telling you a story, hey, David, I'm like this API expert, I build a shit ton of APIs, I know everything there is about APIs, that's why my company would succeed. How do you go about, checking that out? Do you do research on the market? Do you do research on the founders, competitors? What part of that story do you regularly try to validate so that founders don't necessarily try to lie on those things?
Usually, the founders, first of all, the founders should never lie because it will become apparent sooner or later. It just simply always does, being a due diligence, it just comes up. We always validate of course, the apparent stuff are being validated during the due diligence processes, that about the financials, etc., etc. We always do some market research about the area we invest in, whether there is enough potential, whether the numbers kind of stick. If the founder is able to provide the calculation of the whole addressable market or how we calculated it, that if he is referenced, we can always check that out. Then, of course, we do personal DDs, so we ask around ecosystems about the company. I didn't see a company where nobody knew about the company ever, so we always the word just gets around.
So you actually do you Google, do you use
all the
tools and background checks or something like that?
All of that, but this is I'm just checking the facts, right? So whether it's actually true. The whole story, it's actually about how you think about the business. Because based on facts, you can build 3 or 4 different stories, just based on the facts. And depends how you present the facts. So for us as investors, we need to understand how you, as the founders, actually think about the business. It's the same with a financial plan. Often I hear okay, right, this guy wants a financial plan. It's so annoying. He's giving so much feedback, and why he it's not necessary. It's such a small ticket, it's just $1 million here and there. But after all, the financial plan actually, you don't need the pitch deck if you have an absolute amazing financial plan, because the financial plan can speak the language of the business. You can do a different kind of. You have different kind of units. You will see how many developers you will hire, how much you will pay to them, how many people you will actually hire, how much you will invest in sales, how much you will invest in marketing. So actually, it's not, and it's all predictions. I always hear from founders, I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. I don't know what's going to happen in 4 years.
I was there.
What do you want from me? It's not what I want. It's I want to understand what you want to. What do you want to see?
Or at least
actually.
what we think, yeah.
Or what you think, or how you think you're going to actually achieve it.
So essentially looking for somebody to align with what you guys think at the fund in terms of, how you view the market, how you...
I always have this kind of, one of these kind of examples. I spoke with one company, and they were fundraising 2 million euros, and they wanted to actually expand to Germany. So I'm like, okay, guys, that's cool. You have some numbers, it could look good. So let's have a look at the financial plan, how you plan the expansion. So they sent me a financial plan, and the only thing which was for the whole German market were 2 guys hired as a sales guys with a salary of, at that point, 40,000 euros yearly. So I'm like, okay, so where is this the whole expansion kind of captured in, and no, we have it there. We have these 2 sales guys. I'm like, so you think that you're actually gonna hire a sales guy in Germany in 1 month, and he's gonna perform the next month, and you're gonna pay him the 40,000 euros yearly, and he's gonna do all the job on the whole expansion? Yeah, that should be like that. Of course, that's not true. This guy needs a car. He needs some premises. He needs some support. He needs some marketing, some inbound. He will take 6 months until he will actually start performing. Most probably, the unit economics in Germany was absolutely different, because they used the unit from the home country, which actually didn't make sense at all. So we clearly saw they had no clue what they are doing. Hence, if we were to give them the 2 million euros, they would just burn it. They would never get to Germany, and after 2 years or a year and a half, they would be like, yeah, sorry, we don't have cash. what we do now.
I agree. And I think the process of raising a round is actually, I never thought about it, but it's actually somewhat built because in a way where every time you speak to more people, right? So the first time you and I met, I only spoke to you, right? So if you liked it, then you speak to you and somebody else. And then at the end, you speak like to the entire company. So every time you're speaking, I'm speaking to somebody and pitching them and explaining what I want to see, what I think, everybody's validating you, I guess, at that point, and you just kind of have a bigger validation of the story and everything. Would you say that that's the case?
That's definitely the case. In our case, it's usually one person from the investment team, being a principal or partner, who takes care of the company. And it's kind of like since the beginning he's doing the deal. But I mean, during the whole process, the company, I mean, we have a financial guy who is looking at the financial plan and challenging that. Then you need to pitch in front of the investment team, and the investment team actually ask the questions. And I mean, usually the person you speak in a fund, being it associate, being it principal, being it partner, that's your champion. You don't want to like make enemies with this guy, because he's the guy who's going to be like in every single meeting in the company. If he likes you and he would like to invest, he will like be the candidate. He will be the advocate for you, and everybody else going to be asking the difficult questions, right? Because I mean, if you want to kill an investment and not to invest, you will always find any reason you want to. You can kill any investment you would like to have. You would like to kill. So that's why you would like, I mean, speak with a guy who is in touch with you, make a good friends with him, because he's the one who is standing in front of the company and defending you actually, and kind of pushing the investment. And his job is then to kind of push it through the whole investment process and the investment committee ideally. You
guys are literally like a startup, because we also try to cultivate champions, except it's in other software businesses and companies. So that's really, really interesting to hear. Now, going back to the kind of boldness and vision of the story, do you think it's better if the story is more grounded in reality, or that the story is like humongous, right? So if I come to you, hey, I want to raise 2 million, on XYZ valuation, but I really think in like XYZ, I'm going to conquer the world, I'm going to the US. Do you think it should be that kind of approach, or should it be like, hey, I'm going to set up a sales guy in the DACH region, then I'm going to expand into like Scandinavia, then I'm going to do like a very careful rollout, and the vision kind of is just gradually. Now I will try to analyze what you said, okay? Yeah. So basically you told me you would like to go international. Exactly. Which is good. Yeah. Then you mentioned like either US or being it DACH, being it Sweden, whatever. My question would be, okay, so you want me to invest 2 million euros. So my question is, okay, show me how you're going to spend it. Mm-hmm. Like if you would like to go to the US, what does it mean? Yeah. If you hire somebody in the US, fine. I mean, will you move to the US to do first sales yourself? Do you know somebody? And the network cannot be underestimated in this way, because if you already happen to be in Silicon Valley, you visited, you have some friends there, you have some network, you spoke with some funds, utilize that. Because then if you're going to go to the US, they can help you to get the first customers. That's the most important part, right? And I mean, when I speak about the vision, there are founders who, if you go for a fundraise of a Series A, of a 10 million round, I heard from some founders, why should I even raise 10 million round? I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. I don't know how I'm gonna spend the money. Like, that's not the right answer. Because if you fundraise 10 million and you can touch upon that, then you can always hire more guys. You can always try more sales guys. You can always try expansion. You should always have, I mean, if somebody like, so Vedran, if I'm not give you 2 million but 5 million, what are you going to do? Oh, then I'm going to go to the US and to the Asia, because I would like to do this and that, and I will try that, and I have some ideas, so it has to always like go, you should like think bigger. And I mean, if I had here all the US guys in the room, I would be like saying actually absolutely opposite story, because they would have no problem to spend 15 million euros, whereas they would not build anything. But in our region, we have it other way around. So just, dream big. And if you want to achieve the things, I mean, it's not, it's an achievement to sell a company for 50 million euros. It is a huge achievement. I mean, to be a founder and entrepreneur, that's something. But I mean, if you speak with the guys from Atomikos and Excels and such as,
for them, if you sell your company for 50 million euros, it's just not a total failure because they simply can't make enough money out of that. So if you speak with the big guns and you would like these guys to invest, and they are actually, all these funds are now focusing on the CE and SE region. The focus on our region is bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, in here, Treble got Nauta from UK. We have in here in a region VASP, which was YC Combinator company invested by HV Capital, and we have more and more of these examples. And I mean, we speak with the big funds. They have already dedicated departments for the whole CE and SE region, so they would like to actually invest, and they're trying to capture the market. But I mean, we are always trying to explain them that they should like work with the founders a bit differently, because there's a really good example, one of it. The company is on the market like 8 years, okay? But only after 6 years, they figure they have a product. So the product can actually go scaling. Before that, it was just an agency. Before they were kind of renting people out, paying mandates, whatever. Now they have a product and they're gonna start scaling. If the UK investor looks at it, he's like, okay, so these guys managed to get to 50K MRR after 8 years. It's not even a success. Like, it's not, why should I even invest that? But I mean, do they get in 2 years to 50K MRR? That's a different story. So in these kind of cases, it would be even good to kind of not to be highlighting that you have such a good history, but I know founders who are actually proud that they build business and are proud that they have 80 years history, but it simply doesn't kind of match mentally and culturally with the big funds because they're looking at it differently, you know? And the second good example is a very common in our region is that we have one-offs. That you pay together with your product, which can be scalable. They pay the integration, and these clients are paying it like one-offs. I mean, when I speak with the founders, I'm always like, guys, push the scalable things. That's something what the funds would like to see for the next fundraise. But why? Why we should do that? I mean, we have to do the implementation anyway, and these guys are a little like pushing us money. Why we should not take them? And like, guys, I fully understand your point, and actually you're right from a business perspective. But the Western funds, they just don't want to understand that. When they look at you and you have the one-offs, they absolutely discount it. And on top of that, they think that you're an agency business because they would like to have the scalable solution. So basically what we are already like working with our portfolio is that we are saying, okay, guys, I mean, you have a scalable solution. If you have some money aside, like for the implementation, that's fine. But like present your scalability. Present your MRRs, and then always say, okay, I have this MRR, and then only if you have some additional one-offs, then say, and on top of that, by the way, I'm trying to finance myself through these one-offs because it's a free cash, and it's cheaper for me to take this cash than to give up equity. Yeah. So it's all about the right framing, right? It's one thing which you can say two different ways. And actually the second way is much more appealing for the investors than the first way where you say, okay, I have like 1 million euro revenues and at the same time I have like 20K MRR. So that's like a story which is like, okay, this is agency business, which they somehow call it like recurring, whatever. But if I say, okay, I have 20K MRR, on top of that I have 500K, but it's just kind of to finance myself, not to give up equity, that seems like a smart move.
I agree. On that note, like one of the things that I think a lot of us hear and see, looking at US and maybe even some examples in Europe is when people or founders or startups take it a bit overboard with storytelling and kind of raising large amounts of money on just basically stories, like most famously the WeWork thing and we recently talked about Hopin. So that's, I would say, an example where, maybe it was actually too bold or too visionary. Do you see a lot of that happening? And how can a founder stay grounded in his vision, but at the same time, hit whatever you guys are expecting in terms of kind of boldness of the vision?
The boldness of the vision is there and has to be there. But then you always need to check with the reality. I mean, if the founder is going to you and like start arguing, okay, so my competitor just fundraised 80 million euros and he has less than I do in Silicon Valley, and that's why I want such a huge valuation. Well, that's another good argument. in our region, we can really kind of utilize the way that our costs are still lower compared to the West, and we are much more capital efficient. And I mean, usually, if you have a good investors and you speak with them, they are not trying to actually screw over the founders. Because me as investor, I cannot afford to offer a deal which I don't stand behind. And because even if I invest at one point, then it can come back to me. Because I mean, in 2 years' time, the founder is going to be absolutely pissed at me because they will figure out that I screwed them over. I took big chunk of the company for too cheap, and they will be just pissed at me. So every single deal, if we suggest or we would like to negotiate, there's always reasoning behind. I can't speak for all the funds, but we are always, like in our fund, we are always trying to figure out what's the next move. Whether you know, in 2 years' time, this company will be able to actually fundraise next round at what valuation. So there is an upside. I mean, it even happened to me that recently one founder from portfolio came to me. It was a deal which we did in 2021, and we negotiated the whole valuation down, like almost by 50%. And actually, like, of course, at that point, it was not, the founder was not super happy, but actually he came to me two months ago and being like, okay, David, actually, it's actually really good that we did that, because now we have the option and we have the possibility to go to next round and do an up round, because if we were to have such a big valuation at one point, we would, need to go to double the valuation, and we might have an issue right now because it doesn't go that fast as we expected, which it will never go as fast as expected. And maybe one more really good example of, how the difference between founders and how the investors perceive it is that if the CESE founder comes to you, he usually gives you the plan, and then he's able to deliver the plan. Like on Euro, we actually have founders in portfolio which give us the plan at the beginning of the year, and they deliver every single month, like with really small deviations. But in December, we are like, guys, I mean, you want to grow only 3 times, like you are not ambitious enough. But then they're saying, no, but we're gonna deliver that. And because I already know them, I know that they're gonna actually deliver the plan, and they do. But if you take the same plan and you show it to the Western investor, in his mind, he already discounts that because he knows that the plan will never be delivered, because he sees that the plans and the founders he's speaking with, they are promising him 10 times growth. He knows, like, okay, so this is 10 times growth, it's not realistic, he will hit best 4, and that's I like willing to believe that. But that's the thing, if my founder delivers the 3 times growth, the Western investor will not believe that, and he's discounting that.
I agree. Like I keep telling our team here and like everywhere else, like the only reason why we're here, where we are now as a company, is literally because we delivered, right? Because we delivered the first round, and we're trying to deliver on the next round, and I think you've kind of said it right. After the story, it became, that's the delivery part is like the reality check. Okay, you said many really nice things, but can you now actually do this? And that's where kind of the pressure starts kind of focusing in. On that kind of delivery note, when does it start being less about the story and less about the founders and like the market, and actually, when is that round? Is it like post Series A, and what do you usually look at when it comes to more? Is it like revenue? Is it growth? Or
I mean, already after basically, I mean, being at Series A, anything what is fundraising like 5 to 10 million already, it's usually, before that it was not so much about the numbers and KPIs. Nowadays, I feel like even these rounds are already about the numbers and any kind of KPIs. The most important part is, of course, the revenue and the growth. I mean, if you manage to grow 20% in your year, that's a great success still for the company, but that's not suitable for the venture capital investor, because he would like to see much more explosive growth, right? So actually the growth is much more important. Then of course already the revenues needs to be there as well. But usually that's the companies in our region, they usually are able to deliver that. Being it the growth at least 2 times, they can touch upon the money, but then we are kind of not able to communicate the proper vision, because the story still needs to be there. It just needs to be like a more strict combination of the revenues and the story. So the numbers will simply not speak for themselves, just the numbers.
So it's almost like at the beginning, the story is about, like, hey, this is my bold vision, this is the product. And then as time goes by, it's like the story is like, here's how I get unlock the next 50 million, next 10 million. Here's how I unlock a market or a segment or a new category in the product. Would that be kind of...
Yes, I mean, basically...
The story evolves.
The story, I mean, you think about the way how you would like to do the go-to-market or the things you would like to deliver. I mean, even during the investment process, it's actually important if you promise something to the investor during the investment process that you actually deliver. So if you tell me that, I'm start speaking with you in September and you are telling me, okay, in September I had 25K MRR, in November I'm gonna close this huge client, I'm gonna have 35, and then in December I'm gonna end up with a 40 because I closed 2 additional huge clients which I already have in pipeline and just closing the deals. So if I go the whole journey and we're discussing the term sheet, the transactions and everything, and every single month you deliver actually what you promised, that kind of gives me the certainty that whatever you are telling me, you are execution-wise actually capable. But on the other hand, if I see that basically you are still at 25K, you didn't deliver a single client which you promised, and you claimed you have almost before signing during the 4 months investment period, then for me it's a red flag. Because
it's always before signing. It's always until it's not. But yeah, it happens. I get it. I think one thing that I'd like to add, maybe the vision, like especially on the go-to-market, and I think we talked about this in previously. Like my vision for the go-to-market was a bit wrong, right? So I got it wrong. It didn't pan out the way that I think. But I think. If you admit that and kind of say, hey, look, I fucked up. This is what I think next, and this is why I think it's not frowned upon, or you guys don't look at that like a bad thing, right?
No, not at all. Actually, I mean, to pivot from something from what doesn't work to something what can work, it's actually, we would like to see that more often and more quick. So if you realize something like that, or you hire, it's the same with hiring. If you hire somebody who is not fit for the company, it's better to fire him fast, or fire him or her fast. It's the same. It's the same with the laying offs. I mean, currently, plenty of startups have issues with the cash flow, have issues with the just to survive. And I mean, the whole industry was very bloated. So basically, all startups are having some layoffs, and all founders they don't want to do it because apparently it's always very difficult to destroy the team which you have built, and it's always very, very, very difficult. But from the purely company perspective, the sooner you're going to make a decision, the better for the startup, and actually the startup can survive. Because if you're going to be delaying it, you can get beyond the breaking point.
I agree.
Vedran, one more thing. You can pivot, but there is only limited amount.
I know.
A limited amount, a limited times
before
you can actually
they stop
pivot.
believing in what you're saying.
I mean, if you promise to investors that you screwed it up 6 times, and for the 7th time, this is gonna definitely work, then this is the point where the investors are stepping in and being like, Vedran, maybe we should sit together and figure out how we're gonna sell the company where there is still a company.
How many pivots did you see maximum in your company?
I think in one company we saw 4 or 5.
4 or 5 pivots, product pivots.
At a fifth product, I think that the message from the investors was like, okay. We don't believe it anymore, and I think it's time to discuss a merger and acquisition scenario, and to sell something, whatever we have, because we don't believe it will happen actually.
Fair enough. So there is a finite amount of tries.
I mean, after all, you get the funding. So with the venture capital, we expect that you're gonna spend the money wisely, right? But at the same time, there is excessive amount, and usually the company doesn't need that amount. And usually you get a bit more money than you need to, and it's kind of factored in that you can do some screw ups. I mean, you can do some missteps because you should go fast. I mean, if you go fast, you do some screw ups, and that's normal. You just need to do less screw ups than the things right.
I agree. So the last thing before we open up to questions, I can see pizza's arriving. That's a benefit of having a glass door. But at this moment in time, everything that's happening in the market. I feel like it's gone. Last time we did this meetup, it was like before, I think, summer, so it was really horrible. I think the situation has kind of slightly gotten better. But what would you kind of tell, any advice, anybody who wants to start a company like tomorrow or in 5 days or in a year, what would you recommend, one piece of advice that you'd like to share?
Like start a company. I know that's easy to say, and I believe it's very difficult to be a founder, but don't be afraid to start a company. I know that the funding environment got really shitty over the last 12 months or 18 months. We saw plenty of down rounds, we saw plenty of fire sales, but on the other hand, the whole environment was very overheated, right? And we as investors, we actually are actively looking at investments. We would like to invest. Even internally, we are pushing investments. The problem we see is that we don't have enough good quality pipeline, or we see that the expectations of the founders are not aligned of what we would like to see. Right, some founders with the good companies, they still would like to see the valuations and the bloated numbers in 2021, 2020, and they are just not willing to compromise. So I think that start a company, you will get an investment at one point if you are good enough, and you will figure it out. Maybe you will get not such a huge investment. Maybe you will get 25%. The numbers speak for themselves. The investments, they did not disappear. They just, the amount of capital in terms of volume dropped by 60 to 70%. In terms of deal count, it dropped by 50 to 60%. So which actually kind of like reflects that you see like less than half of the rounds, and you see even less capital per round, but there are still rounds happening. Maybe not everything will get funded, and maybe the really good founders and the good companies will get funded, and maybe not at the terms they would like to see. But this is the situation of last year and a half. The market starts getting better, and you are building company for next 5 to 10 years. So the market in 5 to 10 years might be double heated to what we saw in 2021. You just will have a slightly less equity.
Yeah.
But to have a small piece of a pie or a big piece of pie, I would say it's still a piece of pie.
I agree. You're still eating the pie. Yeah, it's delicious. So that kind of brings us to a close on like what David and I wanted to talk about. If any of you have any questions, and please don't be like there's no stupid question. There isn't a bad question. Ask David, ask me. I don't know. I see one hand there. We'll get. So let's start with this side then.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. I'm CEO and founder of Silver Technologies, which is a tech startup, IoT. We are in health industry, in senior care. So I would like to ask you, what's your opinion on a couple of things that you take into consideration? First of all, when you say market size, how you're going to get a market share, etc. But when you are launching a product that is innovative technology, so basically your market is not existing in some. So that's not paradox. The second question is about company evaluation. Of course, there is a methodology, but if you are having a pre-revenue company, a listed company, so it's a very abstract how to evaluate that. So if you could explain a couple of methodologies. And I will tell you all my questions and then...
You want to write it down?
Second thing, if we do sign a contract, how much is your involvement in actual operation and execution in the business? And last but not least, we are always listening how you are doing the evaluation and choosing of products, but we are also doing some kind of evaluation on our own and due diligence. So what do you suggest the startup founders to take into consideration when choosing VC?
Okay, so I will try to cover all of them. First, about the market, you're absolutely correct. If there is a blue ocean market, then you can't calculate because the market is about being formed. On the other hand, I believe that the majority of the number of cases in which it's a truly really blue ocean market, it's rather than marginal. And I think that plenty of startups we see today, the market is able to be calculated. Maybe not somehow super like precisely, but I mean somehow you are able to figure out how you will monetize it. I mean, if you are super deep tech, something what is super new, then I understand that blue ocean is basically not there because you can't do that. In majority of other startups, you can figure out some metric, and it's more really about how you think about it. The second question was about
company relations.
Yeah. So at that case, I would say the venture capitalist, I mean, the angel investor should take around 10 to 15% at the very beginning. Then the venture capitalist, the first fund should, and yet again, somewhere from 10 to 20% of the company. You should never give more than 20% of the company. I mean, never say never, but the 20% is the rule of thumb. So more is always a red flag. If it's 21, it's fine. If somebody gonna take 50% of the company, that's a problem. So that's usually the amount. So it's 10 to 20%, and then the amount of the money you need. That's kind of the metric I would look at it. And then the question is always about the about the amount of money you need actually, and then the question is whether you really need that amount of money. Whether you really need, like, I don't know, 10 million euros. Maybe you're okay with 1 million and you just not spend that fast. It's not even that easy to hire people that fast, for example. The next one was about.
Once you sign and you enter the company, how much are you actually involved?
Yeah. I mean, we are not running the company. We just take the minority stake, so we are not doing day-to-day executions, executive powers. But for example, if there is already about to hire somebody, VP of sales in the US for 400K, that is the decision we would like to get involved and would like to even to meet this guy, because that's a huge expense. So with that case, we kind of like trying to have our say, if yes or no, because it's kind of like heavily impacting the runway. And when it comes to running the business, I mean, you are the founders, it's your company, so you should run it as you see fit. We are just kind of getting really involved in running the company after the 5th pivot, where we are saying it's you tried enough.
You said 5th, so.
And when it comes to how actually we work with the company, it's we always try to have strategy meetings with them. We discuss next fundraising, we discuss layoffs, we discuss how to spend more money, when to go for fundraising, or if they need some help with the hiring people, then we have agencies which we worked before, or we know that our portfolio worked before and they actually function well. If they need some mentoring, even coaching, that we know coaches which actually are good ones and we have a good experience. So usually when we recommend something to the portfolio, it's we kind of putting our name behind that. It's the same with finance. I mean, often happens that the guys have a problem with the finances in a way that they can't manage it. They don't know like what is actually the proper how much money they're making monthly. I mean, simply it's some kind of accounting who is running it, but never actually the proper management accounting. And then of course, I mean, the network. So when it comes with the network and the new clients, then usually it's always better not to ask, look, can you please just connect me with all the marketing companies or connections you have in the US? It's always better to ask, okay, I would like to get to this kind of specific company. Are you able to connect me to this specific company? Do you know somebody there? And then usually the venture capitalists, they are able to do that. They are able to kind of get through their ways and to connect you. But it's always very difficult to kind of do it very like broadly. So this is how we work with the companies. And the last question was about, speak with the ecosystem. Speak with the ecosystem, speak with the other funds, and don't be afraid to ask the portfolio companies of that fund.
In many cases, your company has all the companies they invested, exits, etc.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, you don't have that public information. You don't have even information.
I believe that all the good funds should have this like publicly available. So if they don't have their portfolio on the website, either they are super new, or there is a reason why, or that they are hiring. It might be like that. They usually have it there, or ask them directly to if they can connect you to, I don't know, 5 companies in their portfolio, and then you choose 2. But I would find it rather rare if there were to be a fund which is not disclosing their portfolio and you can't get on them in a public way, like on the meetups, like in here, or speak with other founders. Because I mean, it's our job to be, in the field and speak with the whole community. So you should get the feedbacks.
If I may add on top of that, so I think aligning with the vision that you have, I think that's pretty important, because then the VC is going to be like, okay, I know what your vision is, I know what you're building, go do it. Nobody's going to mess around with you. But if at the beginning you disagree on the fundamental way of you kind of going after your company or building it, then maybe that's not, something that you should do.
On this way, I was on one of the mentoring programs, and I was like kind of explaining how to build up the whole $1 billion slide. By the way, which you have in pitch deck, and it's great.
Thank you.
And I was explaining to all the guys on the mentoring program how to do that, right? And then there was a founder, and he kind of like, he asked something, and he was like, but why should I do that? Like, I don't want to build $1 billion company. Like, if I build a $10 million company, I'm more than happy. I'm gonna sell it for 10 million, and to have 10 million, I'm comfortable with that. And I was like, I do understand that. It's a huge achievement, and you should definitely do it. But you are not the venture capital case. Or at least if you would like to get the investment, like, never say this to the investor. Because simply then you don't have the aligned vision. Because if you tell me that you would like to sell your company for 10 million, then, I'm saying, okay, well, good luck with that. Well, it's not for us. Maybe if I were to invest for 500k euros valuation, then fine, because then I would make myself a return. If this founder is asking me to invest for a 5, 7, 10 million valuation, and his ambition is to sell it for 10 million, there's no upside for the fund. So that's why I would not invest.
Thank you. Petya, you had a question?
No, first of all, thanks for coming and for the great contribution. You guys are focused on CE, and let's kind of like bring this question to the CE region. But you being based in Czech Republic and traveling a lot, what would you say kind of like, or what would be your feedback to the Croatian ecosystem and the founders? What should they pick up that you think is good, and you saw it kind of like in Czech Republic, Poland, or similar countries? Because I think there are a lot of similarities between the markets, but still some differences. And perhaps you guys or those countries are a bit more advanced or started earlier with this.
You are right. I think that the markets are not super different in terms of mentality. We are definitely the same. In Czech Republic, we have actually the advantage that we have already a bit more unicorns and also more exited founders. And then you actually see that this founder generation, which already managed to exit, is kind of start giving back to the community. So you actually have, and you also have more startups which fundraised Western rounds. So the big ones like 20, 30 million euros rounds, and like they have the experience. And this experience to the whole ecosystem is really important. And I think that Croatia actually, you guys are getting to the point where you already start having it, having the 2 unicorns, having Infobip, having Rimac, having like fundraising big rounds, for example, Treble. So those are all the experience we actually will be start giving back to the whole community and to actually share it. I still think that, for example, in Czech Republic we have more VC funds, so the competition actually is already a bit bigger. I think in here there is more and more funds, which actually is good for the ecosystem, and also the founders start learning about the let's call it VC way. That basically, if you build up a company, that's a bit different than building a scalable technological startup. It's a 2 ways of doing stuff, and I think that plenty of founders just did not think about that they could actually build a technological scalable startup, and they're just being entrepreneurs. I also very much like that there are already companies and actually angel investors who are who started investing into the startups and trying to give back. So I think that it's kind of going hand in hand, and I think that slightly behind us in terms of this, but you're catching up. But I don't mean in a
No,
in a
I
bad
know,
way.
you're right, you're right.
It just maybe we just fundraise a bit more rounds and have a bit more exit founders, but I mean it's not we don't have a Silicon Valley there. Yeah, true that.
Help us change that. I'm sure there are many startup
I mean,
ideas
that's why
here.
I'm sharing
That's why
here.
you're here. So yeah, Daur was first. So I'm gonna let you go. Daur, go ahead first.
Okay, my question is more for you, Bedran.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe David can comment. When you said that in each round of talks, you gotta get analyzed.
Yeah.
You use different words.
Extremely.
But how does it work in reverse on yourself? So do you feel like it's a kind of positive pressure that you try to analyze yourself? Or
Yeah. So it depends largely on you as a person. Like I personally view it as a way to basically learn even more and understand, what exactly is it that they are looking for, because you can tell a lot, and this might partially answer a question we heard before. You can tell generally, you can tell a lot about a person, but from the questions that they're asking, right? So if I'm building like a really deep tech thing, and all the questions from VCs are about, I don't know, finances, then I know that that's where they're interested in, and maybe if I want to accept that, I should kind of start preparing answers for that. But I've been through some really weird processes. I think theirs was like one of the better ones, but no joke. Like it was really good, because they tend to do, especially the US side, like tends to do a lot of very weird things. Like they introduce you to other funds, then those guys review you as well. Like I got introduced to a bunch of competitors of ours, direct competitors. So you talk to somebody there, then they tell the VCs like what they think about you. So it's like you get analyzed in so many ways, but I think it's good for self-discovery. And most of them ask the same. At the end of the day, if you talk to 100 or 200 of them, it's all the same questions afterwards, right? So you learn along the way. I don't think I felt that pressure of being interrogated ever. It's if you're building something and you really enjoy what you're doing, it's just like answering questions. So you're asking me a question now, and I'm not afraid to answer it, right?
Sure. I think maybe for somebody like myself, it's kind of like I have a problem with being satisfied with not as much as I can do, because I'm fine, But I feel like sometimes when I have this pressure from myself, it's kind of positive.
I agree.
Do you think that it kind of helped you to make a bigger company that you need to also satisfy other people?
Oh yeah, a lot. For sure, because like I said, one of the things that David repeatedly said here, and I think is very important, like the mentality, right? I've spoken to, it's very easy to be satisfied or limit yourself to what, the Croatian way is, and say like, oh, I'm not gonna spend 20K on this ad campaign because, with 20K, my parents could live for like half a year in where I'm from, right? So it's like a huge amount of money, but you have to kind of break through some of these barriers. By the way, I'm not saying you should spend 20K on ads, but to illustrate a point, right? So I think there is a positive. It's more like learning, right? You talk to them, you get feedback, you get an experience, and in my opinion, it's very important that you go in this whole process with an understanding and a willingness to change and grow. Because if you don't do that, if you're not growing literally every single week, month, or whatever it is, it stops, right? The company stops growing, everybody around you stops growing, etc., etc. I think you had a question.
Yeah, nice talking to you 2 days ago. Right? You mentioned a drop in the volume and the number of deals in the VC world. Does that apply to your specific area of focus, this SE and early stage startups? Or do you have any specific numbers? Is it different than in the rest of the world?
I think that in our area, actually, it's those numbers. In the West and the US are very similar numbers. I would say that even the later stages dropped even more, because simply the later stages were, the biggest issue was with the Nasdaq. When it's dropped, then basically that's kind of like really spooked out the whole pre-IPO guys who invested those rounds. If the pre-IPO guys stop investing those rounds because they didn't know how they can sell it to the public, well, that spooked the Series D guys, Series C guys, Series B guys, Series A guys, and you go like this down to the seed and pre-seed. It is not hit that much, the seed and pre-seed, as the others, but it still hit quite a lot. I would say that actually our region was actually hit even a bit less because we simply didn't have the US valuations in here before. We didn't have the German valuations here before, but I would say that actually now our valuations kind of got closer to the US and the German ones. So I mean, the whole market kind of really kind of froze. But I think actually that there's a positive side and positive light at the end of the tunnel. I think that actually the number of deals is increasing. The venture capitalists, they want to do deals. The startups, they start accepting the terms. But I mean, we are still not at the levels as we used to. And I think it will take some time until we'll get to that point again. We'll get to that point, but the question is when. In 2 months, no. In a year, maybe not. I would say more like 2 years plus, then we'll see like those hyped valuations. So I would say we are right now like in some kind of like new normal. That actually like this, because right now it's more like investors would like to invest, but startups, they don't want to accept those terms, right? So it's more like a chicken and egg. So who gonna last longer? And
We will last long.
no,
You're in a hurry.
I think that it's always a risk, but there's plenty of startups are there because they are saving the costs. So actually, I mean, if you look at it from the other side, if you are saving the costs, that you are kind of going against the whole recession. So actually, you might be more useful because the companies will actually have the push to actually innovate because they can save the costs. Well, on the other hand, there is always the argument again that if the company needs to save the cost, they don't have a time to innovate. So the project stays super longer, even though there will be actually positive return on investment. So it's always like
give or take.
yeah.
We had a question here.
Yeah, what would be some of your like role models in terms of startups in Europe where you would like to have invested and why? Maybe top 3 successes.
I mean, there is a very obvious one.
Thank you, but we're not a success yet. Yeah.
No, honestly, I'm not even kidding. I mean, the way how Vedran is running it, and the way how he's running the whole company, the culture, and everything, and the way that the right mindset is there. And he managed to close a big round. It actually gave him enough runway to actually achieve whatever he would like to have. So he's in a perfect position, right? And
Unless
he has
I
the time
fuck
to do
it
that.
up, but thank you. We'll try not
That's
to.
part of the game, right?
Yeah,
So, I mean, you
I
can
agree.
always fuck it
It's
up.
a risk.
Honestly, I don't have on my mind like one specific startup because I think that you need to be really close to the startups and to the startup to actually see the whole journey. Because whatever you see in the news, I mean, there is usually like much more to it. Like,
Didn't you hear? Next time you come here next year, you're gonna drive in self-driving cabs around Zagreb. So that's in the news.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's exactly the point. I mean, even if you don't, I mean, if you're really close to the company, it has to be your portfolio or something where you're looking more in detail to actually understand what is the right way. And you will always see that there are not all the great investors, that the cap table is never ideal. There are always the issues. And usually even from a successful founders, when you speak with them, when they manage to fundraise a 20 million round, then you sit down with them on a beer and they're like, oh my God, that was such a shit show. Like seriously, like I was in the US, I spoke with 300 funds, like they're all being like not nice. It's absolutely like, I hated it. I'm like such an introvert. And then suddenly like he managed to fundraise the 20 million because he managed to align the vision with somebody who trusted him and who gave him the round. And then you read in the news, this guy, he managed to fundraise, like he's delivering God knows what, God knows to whom, right? So you just don't see the insights in the stories. You can see it mostly with your portfolio or if you're looking at it more
It's
in
so
detail.
true.
Just don't believe whatever you read in the media.
It took us also a while to raise this new round, trust me. So what he says is absolutely true.
You could have it much faster.
All over about this guy.
Yeah, so I have two questions. First, to David, so how do you find startups? Do you have a method that you look for startups, or the startups reach out to you for the investing?
This is, for example, one method here. So I come in here, I organize with Veteran, and I can meet like so many bright minds, and maybe there's gonna be a startup which we'll be interested in, and we'll actually find a common ground, so we'll invest. So we are trying to kind of be present at the ecosystem, to speak with the people around, with being advisors, being it other VCs, being it going to the conference, so we can catch up with those guys. So it's a really networking business. So we have to be a lot of out. We have to speak with a lot of founders, and we have to take a lot of meetings. That's kind of like the networking which we have to do to actually find the startups. And once you do that, you learn about a startup here, you learn about a startup there. There's somebody, if your portfolio is happy with you, they can even recommend you, look, this is a good startup here, look at them. So this is one way. Then of course in GNT Ventures, we are also trying to do it more systematically, like on an inbound. So we are screening LinkedIn for new founders. We are having our info mail where usually the startups are coming. But honestly, I don't think that that actually, statistically speaking, the inbound which coming to us asking for investments, it's usually much more like statistically, it doesn't bring such a big value to us, because simply, you will see there are plenty of companies who simply don't know how to do fundraising. They are not the VC cases, and just asking for a fund. Once we received we could do different ones on all the ridiculous ideas we received.
Don't do it. This is going on YouTube later on.
I think that once we received a proposition to fund a new zoo. And there was a really good business plan with like how much the llama cost, how much the crocodile costs, and there was like really interesting ones, but definitely like.
Was it tech? Like, did they innovate something on the tech side, or
Honestly,
like
I don't know,
was it the amount of animals? Okay, nice.
I remember how much a llama costs.
No, but I can dig it up if you want.
He had a second part.
Yeah, and
Sorry. Maybe Vadim can also contribute. So you mentioned at the beginning that the founders should have all the skills, the tech, magic, and sales and people skills. And we often see, we can read the story of Apple with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and Microsoft with Paul Allen and Gates. So based on your experience meeting startups, how much is that impactful? Meeting a founder that has that vision, and has the co-founder that has actually the tech skill. And did you ever met someone that had the vision but didn't have the tech skill to execute that vision, and maybe that's why it didn't go through? Do you see that chemistry happen?
That's the thing. You will. If you find a person who has all those things, is amazing visionary, has amazing tech, has amazing everything, then you will fall to the trap that it's a single founder. Yeah. So it's a big issue, because if this guy is going to be hit by a car, the company is not there. So basically, it's always really good about the team. The team can't be that big, but it's good if the founders have different kind of skill set. So they kind of like add to each other like a puzzle. So it kind of works. Usually you deal with the investment with usually the visionary, the guy who is like good at sales, so he's negotiating with blah blah blah, because the tech guy, first of all, they're not interested in it. Second of all, they don't like it. But on the other hand, during the process, we of course sit down even with the technical guy. We are doing technical due diligence, so we need to get to know this guy as well, because it's part of the investment. Maybe we will not be in touch with this guy like so much, but at the same time, it's a huge part of the investment. So it kind of like balance it with the founders team, and all those skills actually make sense.
I'll just briefly, before the pizzas get totally cold, I think you might start with one kind of skill set, or you might be really good technically, but if you want to succeed, I think you have to grow whatever spectrum you can grow, and wherever you can grow as an individual. If I can grow in sales, I would love to do that. If I can grow in business. So I don't think you stay only on one path. Even if you are good at like two things, the best thing for you is to basically grow that number to whatever humanly is possible, right? So
that's true, and I partially agree.
Okay, wow.
You as a founder, you will sit on so many chairs.
I agree.
But once you sit on so many chairs, you will never do every one of them perfectly. So, I mean, you as a CEO, you need to do sales. The first sales need to be done by the founder, right? But I can tell you that once you fundraise the money and the fundraise the round, there is so many people who can just do the sales better than you. So there is no reason for you as a CEO and a founder, if you just sold it like 1, 2, 3 times, then focus on the stuff you're good at and start delegating. I mean, you just can't do everything as a founder. So you need to start delegating as soon as possible. Like, I can tell you, I literally hate this because there are founders who are running 30% companies and they're still paying the invoices themselves. Like, that's absolute waste of time. And we did not invest in you, founders, to actually waste your time on paying invoices, whereas this could be done by APA or somebody who is not so expensive as you are.
Let's we'll do. Let's do it. The pieces will get whole, but if you don't mind.
Yeah, I understand you're on your second fund now, and
Yeah.
you spoke about what kind of return you expect when you invest. So I would like to know what is actually the typical IRR or some exit in the first fund, which I understand.
Typical multiple?
Yeah.
I don't think I can tell this publicly.
In the range of.
What we, I can tell
So
you.
she asked you about the ARR, not the multiple.
Yeah, okay. I think that that depends. I mean, because with the IRR, it's always quite tricky with the funds because I mean you have a different capital calls. So the capital actually flows in like is not sitting there since day one, right? So it goes like step by step. With the multiples, when we invest in a company, we don't have that strict view. It has to return the fund, but we have to see realistically that it gives us 10 times multiple. And plus, and this has to be realistic, so we kind of believe that it can be done like that. When it comes to the fund, I mean, the first fund we consider as a success. We managed to do 4 exits with higher units of multiples, right. And one was almost at costs. But we still have there 3 companies or 2 which are actually going quite well. So we are actually happy with how it goes so far.
As a minority investor, what kind of legal protection do you like to see in legal documents?
I mean, as a minority investor and a VC investor, because we invest big amounts for valuations which cannot be achieved by any kind of standard method, we need to be kind of protected. So we have the standard ones as anti-dilution, as liquidation preferences. When it comes to the reserve matters, there are some decisions which founders cannot do without our consent. If they do, they kind of break and it's a fraud basically. Those decisions are not business driven, but they are kind of, if you have a company and you take a loan of 2 million euros, that certainly hurts the value we have. And that's why you can't do it without our consent. If you change the legal form of the entity, if you take on more capital and we are being diluted, those are all the things which kind of need our approval. And we have a standard set of reserve matters, like 10 or 12 of them, which cannot be done. Or selling the asset. I mean, sometimes you don't need to sell the company, you just sell the main asset. If you sell the main asset and we as investors invested in a company, then I mean, we might be screwed because the asset was the most valuable thing. So those are all the things which you cannot do without a consent. When it goes to the day-to-day operations, we let it go. And we have there even provisions that you should spend the capital according to the provided financial plan. And if there is some expenses above certain thresholds that it is and is not in the financial plan, then you need to ask us for approval. And I think it goes somewhere around 150K one-off expense or hiring some people who are that expensive without the approval of the financial plan. Then I mean, speak to us. It's the same case of the 400K euros.
With yourself, yeah. I'll allow one more questions, and then you can ask. David's gonna be around eating pizza, hopefully drinking beer. Got his checkbook. It's very warm, so you can pitch him. I think you had a question, or
What are your thoughts about the companies like Figma, for example, or even Photomat it took years to build the product, didn't have revenue for many years. Do you consider those kind of companies, or you mentioned earlier you're going after revenue?
I always say it's not only about the revenue. You need to show some kind of traction. So you don't need to have revenues if I see that your app is being used by the user, open it 3 times a day, and he is sticking around for 12 months, then it doesn't need to be revenues because I see that those guys are coming back. You have a cohort, so those guys are coming back. They are not churning. They are kind of sticking there. So that has a value. I mean, it's the same with a traveler. You don't need to guys have a lot of revenues, but if your solution is going to be used for all the epicals and the apicals will be growing exponentially, I mean, it's always better to have revenues, but I mean, there will be something which can be monetized at one point. So it's okay not to have revenues, but you need to have some kind of metric which it's growing, and according to which even you yourself consider that it's a good business.
An important metric, yeah, that you're going to track and kind of continue.
And show any kind of hockey stick. I mean, I was saying like I would like to see in a pitch deck any kind of hockey stick, just not the cost.
I swear I'm going to print that out
Just
because
not the
if I
cost.
hear one more time about the hockey stick, I swear I'm going to print that out. So you'll get to ask David as many questions as you want. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you asking the questions. I'm afraid the pizzas are going to get kind of cold. So, by the way, all of these really accept David's picture on your kind of tags, which is really nice. You have a QR code. It actually has all your information on it, so you can literally share. If you just scan it, you'll immediately kind of share your phone number and a bunch of other details. So you could do that if you want. And like I said, David is here. Maybe allow him to grab a bite, and then you can go.
No, thank you very much that you came here to spend the evening with us, and thank you, Vedran.
Thank you for everything that you've done, and you came.